Ms. Bhutto, thank you so much for speaking to Times Now. There were a lot of dramatic developments in Pakistan yesterday. What do you feel about that?
Well, excuse me. The Supreme Court of Pakistan had ruled that every citizen is entitled to return to the country. However, Mr. Nawaz Sharif was deported, and the government claims that Mr. Nawaz Sharif voluntarily traded his right to return in exchange for remission in his sentences for corruption and treason, and agreed to go into exile for 10 years. So now it's really an issue for the courts and for the guarantors and for General Musharraf to sort out. But as far as we are concerned, we are pleased that the Supreme Court did rule that every citizen is free to return to their land.
But Ms. Bhutto, as we saw in Pakistan, there were protests across the country. There were so many arrests. The PML and Nawaz Sharif's party itself said that this was clearly not according to what the Supreme Court had said. You being such a strong voice, you've been known throughout to be against the military establishment. Why didn't we hear a strong word from you as far as what happened in Pakistan yesterday?
Well, we have condemned the arrests. We think the arrests were wrong. But as far as whether Mr. Nawaz Sharif voluntarily gave up his right to live in Pakistan when he traded his release from prison and got the remission of the sentence and the dropping of corruption charges, that's an issue that really must be resolved between him, the courts and the guarantors.
Do you think this particular incident has reduced President Musharraf's credibility?
Certainly, I think it's added to the troubles that General Musharraf's regime faces, and my concern is that it should not spill over into more trouble for Pakistan as we are scheduled to have elections later this year. And I wouldn't like any incident being used now as a pretext to try and defer those polls. My party is insisting that the polls must be held on time.
Talking about the polls, when do you intend to go back to Pakistan? There seems to be a delay as far as your return to Pakistan is concerned.
There's no delay on my part. I announced that I would go back between September and December this year, and on September 14th, my party will announce from the soil of Pakistan in 5 different locations the exact timing of my return.
There's been a lot of talk about your deal with President Musharraf. There was Sheikh Rashid, the Pakistani minister, who came out and said outrightly, he almost made an announcement that the deal is off. Is there some kind of trouble with the deal as far as President Musharraf is concerned?
I don't believe in deals, but I do believe in a transition to democracy. I could have an understanding tomorrow with General Musharraf if I gave in to what they would like me to give in to. But I'm doing this for the people of Pakistan, because I think democracy is important for undermining terrorism, for creating a moderate society, and for meeting the social and economic needs of our people. So I'm trying to negotiate for a transition to democracy and a workable political system. But you're quite right, there are many elements that don't want democracy, don't want the moderate forces coming together, and don't want this understanding. Whether it takes place or not, only time can tell.
Have you personally spoken to President Musharraf at any given point?
I'd rather not walk that line.
You can't just pick up the phone and talk to him at any point, or to the people of the Musharraf establishment who've been in touch with you in London?
I guess I could if I wanted to, but I'd rather not walk that line.
About 3 days back, you made a statement that if this deal does not come through, there would be upheaval in Pakistan.
No. I didn't say if the deal, or I don't believe in deals. I said that if the elections are rigged, there will be upheaval in Pakistan. Because I do believe that the people of Pakistan are fed up of the present system. The people of Pakistan are suffering unemployment, inflation, terrorism, there's lack of security, there are power shutdowns, people's lives are miserable. And as the movement for the Chief Justice's restoration showed, that any incident can spark a much larger reaction. And I'm convinced that if the elections are not free, all the political parties will unite, civil society will back it, and that there will be an upheaval in Pakistan. There could be an orange revolution like the one that took place in the Ukraine when elections were rigged. So it's my very keen desire for the stability and security of Pakistan to see that fair elections are held. We have problems with fair elections. Our issue on the electoral rolls is still not resolved. We have gone to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has given a verdict and said that the rolls should be updated. But our technical experts say that much more is needed, and that even with this very good step by the Supreme Court, there are still problems to be faced. So we are still struggling for the mechanism of a fair election. Although this has been promised to us by General Musharraf's side, that the fair election steps will be implemented, we are still awaiting the implementation of those steps.
Are those the kind of assurances you're waiting for from President Musharraf, or is it more about your demands for a third term as Prime Minister, or the fact that the corruption charges against you be dropped?
See, the corruption charges against me could have been dropped in 2000. I could have traded my freedom just like Mr. Nawaz Sharif did. Had I traded my freedom and got guarantors involved, my husband would have been free and the corruption charges dropped. But I didn't do that. I suffered this character assassination, slander and mudslinging because I was fighting for the rights of the people of my country. The issue today is not immunity. The issue today is fair elections and the emergence of a government that is a workable government. There's no point in being set up for failure. There's no point in making a government and having it sacked after 2 months because the government is tackling internal militancy and some of the hidden forces don't like that.
Would you concede to a president in uniform?
No.
Is that your most important demand from President Musharraf?
I cannot say that there is a single demand that is the most important because each of the points of discussion are important to the overall welfare of Pakistan and the 160 million people of Pakistan. It's a package of how we can get a system that is workable. We had a constitution in '99 which was changed by the military intervention. So now we have 2 constitutions, one the military constitution and one the people's constitution. So I'm trying to work my way to seeing that how can we move towards the people's constitution, that what is the transition going to be like so that we have a system that's workable, that reflects the aspirations of the people of Pakistan, that enables us to face the threat within and build upon regional security.
A lot of experts in Pakistan say that the PPP is slowly getting isolated as far as the political spectrum is concerned. And you especially, there are some who say that you're not in touch with the reality in Pakistan, and what the people of Pakistan want is that President Musharraf should be out. They don't want a dictator anymore.
They don't, let me tell you that the people who are the experts, maybe they're out of touch. Because in my long political career, these experts have always said about my father when he was in prison that nobody wants Mr. Bhutto, and he still continues to dominate the politics of Pakistan today. The first time my government was sacked, the so-called experts popped up again. These experts are not really experts. These are people who come forward to give their opinions, to give a facade so that rigging can take place by the establishment underneath. As far as General Musharraf is concerned, yes, the popularity ratings show that his graph is down. But nonetheless, Pakistan is an important ally in the battle against extremism. And we see that when people are dictators, they don't need graphs to stay in power. And the issue for us is how we can end dictatorship and how we can bring democracy, how we can take the military out of the governance of our country. These are very important issues, and I hope that we can find a resolution.
Ms. Bhutto, what one has seen in Pakistan, especially over the past 6 months, we had incidents like the Lal Masjid. There's a very growing, strong radical element in Pakistan. At any point, even after elections, would you even think of aligning with the so-called Jamaatis?
Well, I have a great reluctance to work with the people who have been in power up to date, and they have expanded their influence. But I don't go into personalities and I don't go into political parties. I go into lines and I say, where are the lines going to be drawn? I believe in the rule of law. And the rule of law says that people cannot have private militias. They cannot have private irregular armies of their own. Anybody who's willing to respect the Constitution of Pakistan, I can work with them. But people who want to defy the Constitution, set up a parallel state, set up a parallel foreign policy, and teach hatred between different communities, different religions, different races, I can't work with them.
Do you think you're going to get support from the US, one of Pakistan's biggest allies?
Well, I'm looking for Washington to support the restoration of democracy in Pakistan, and I welcome the statements that the United States has been giving for democracy. We feel that Washington is a great democracy, just as India is, and it's wrong for it to be associated with a military dictatorship. We know that India too has been having discussions with this military dictatorship on a composite dialogue for Kashmir. And while we have our reservations about India working so closely with a military dictatorship, we have not been critical of it, because we give peace with India a top priority, and we feel that if this composite dialogue is done, it's still a step forward for peace. So we're looking towards the democracies of the world to support democracy in Pakistan.
You mentioned India and you mentioned Kashmir in particular. Do you think any headway has been made during the past 4 or 5 years, especially with President Musharraf talking to India more openly per se than they have in the past? And how do you intend to take that forward if at all you come back into power?
I have not been taken into confidence about what is the composite dialogue. But one thing I know, that when I started the peace process in 1988, I was called a security threat by both members of the military and by Mr. Nawaz Sharif. So I'm very pleased to see that my policies subsequently have gained a wider currency. And today there's a consensus in Pakistan that despite our dispute over Kashmir, we should not let our relations enter into a logjam. I must really go now, man. I really must go.
Just one last question.
All right.
Are we looking at the next Prime Minister of Pakistan?
Well, this is an issue that people of Pakistan alone can decide. I know I've been Prime Minister twice, so it's not becoming Prime Minister that bothers me. I'm bothered about the empowerment of the people of Pakistan, about food, clothing and shelter, or roti, kapra, makan as we say it. Poverty has increased since my government was removed. And if the people of Pakistan bless me with their support, it will be an honor and a privilege for me to serve them as the 3rd time Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bhutto.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
and
much.
Apologies for rushing off like this.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you so much.